Okay, and Bonnie.
Yeah.
Right. Well, good morning, guys. Did y'all have a good weekend? Yeah, I was a little short though. The weather was good. Okay, so we always start with our norms to make sure that we're all on the same page. You will not need your technology just yet this morning. So you can go ahead and close your laptops and put those off to the side, okay? Also, if you would make sure that your phones are on like vibrate and all that good stuff, right? So you don't want to be the person whose phone goes off, in the middle of the staff development. And then we always ask that you guys come to us with an open mind, right? We know, we fully understand, we've been there before. It's October. And
Don't say it. I'm not saying that. I don't believe in that anymore.
no, but we get it. We get how you're feeling right now. All right, so if you would just come to us with an open mind. And then just like at the beginning of the year, we will have a little signal because there's a lot of us in here, right? So we'll have that little NBC signal to play to ask that we get your attention back. There we go. So today, So today we will review the needs of our students. So at the beginning of the year in our first CTC, we had you guys look at kids you thought might be struggling kids based on some past test data. So we are going to revisit that today. If you forgot to bring that paper, that's okay because we have some extras, all right? But our goal is that by the end of today, you will walk out of here as a team with a plan for implementing targeted strategies into your classroom. So that is always our goal, that I will is kind of our assessment to see did we get done what we needed to get done. So that's what the goal is, that you're going to walk out of here with that plan. Any questions before we get started? You good? Okay. All right, so then in the center of your table is a little envelope, and it has a bunch of quotes in there.
So team leads, if you'll grab that envelope for us, or whoever's nearest, and spread the quotes out where everybody can see them.
So you can pull out the quotes that are in there.
So you're gonna need some space.
Yeah, you might wind up having to kind of stand up.
Got it too?
And your job is to look at those quotes, and we want you just to point to or pick up or whatever feels comfortable, but the quote that best represents how you're feeling at this moment, okay? And then you're going to talk to your table mates about why you chose that quote, and we'll just take a few minutes to kind of get in our mindset. Ready, set, go. You can pick the same one. Just like you don't all have to pick it.
I read the We're done.
So now, after you've decided what fits you, explain to your table why you picked what you picked. Yeah. Explain to your table why. Yeah.
I think there's future day in, day out, and not
I see some kids get really down and get back.
Okay, once you pick your quote, you have to explain to each other why you picked it. Why is that quote speaking to you right now?
Don't just magically happen in your brain already. So I said I chose yesterday. Mindset, right? Like I'm constantly, and this is like all facets of my life, right? Trying to get better and trying to kind of not thinking anything in terms of because it's clear.
Okay, so at this time, hopefully you guys have kind of reflected on, kind of things that are happening in your classroom. Hopefully you've thought about what's going well, that sort of thing. But we want to ask you to just take a minute and kind of reflect with your teammates what keeps you going, right? Because it's a long stretch between now and Christmas. So what are the things that are kind of keeping you motivated at this time of year? So just a quick discussion with your teammates. What's keeping you motivated? Go.
Well, I know that I've been
That's true.
I do enjoy He's filming, you just walk through so I wouldn't have expected to necessarily latch on.
So you're getting surprised by some of your kiddos?
Some of them that are performing a little bit prior experience. That type of
that must speak to like your ability to like come down, your ability as a teacher, and your ability to like just kind of turn things around.
I never thought of that way. First I thought of it my
And knowing that I'm going to, right? Like, just experience something like how it is.
I know, hey, we're here. That's what's super nice. Okay, so very quickly, you could easily sit here and kind of dwell on the things that are kind of hanging over us, right? But I would like to hear from you guys, what keeps you motivated this time of year? So just anybody, what's keeping you motivated right now? My team. Your team, all right, awesome. Okay, Taylor said Thanksgiving's around the corner. Okay, relationships with the students and the kids who act thankful for what you're doing. Man, that's nice, isn't it? When that kid's like appreciating it. Anybody else?
I can. I guess looking at data, like my kids, I have one class that is all students who failed the EOC, their English 1 test, so I have one of the group of retesters, but we took there and we've been tracking their data, and all the students in that class grew from their English 1 test to this last unit test. So they didn't pass, okay, but we all grew.
Yeah.
But they grew, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
So we just hope that you'll keep that in mind, right? Because I think the reason that we're all here at the end of the day is because of the kids. As I was kind of walking around and hearing what people had to say, several of you commented on that your teammates were keeping you motivated, but I also heard a lot of people say their kids. Like I heard Christine say, she was like, I just really love my kids, right? And I think we've got some great kids at this school. We really do. I think we're pretty blessed. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, that that's why we're all here. Right?
If you'll put your quotes back in your envelope for me.
Oh yeah, we have to use those for the afternoon session. So if you'll put your quotes back in the envelope.
And then team leads. There is a folder on your table. In that folder, if you'll just pull out your goals sheet. It's a blue half sheet. Go ahead.
Okay, so we want to ask you guys as a team to think about these goals, because you guys set these goals at the beginning of the year, right? Before any kids had walked through our hallways or walked through our doors, you guys set these goals at the beginning of the year when you were still kind of rested from summer, right? We were really gung-ho, like, we can do this, right? So we want to ask you to look at these goals and consider, are you still committed to these goals? Because the fact is that, like Megan was saying, she's got a whole class of kids that have failed the STAR test. She might be looking at that class going, whoa, I need to back up just a little bit and reframe my goal, right? So are you still committed to these goals? Are you still on track to reach these goals? Or has maybe your first unit test or your first test that you guys gave together, maybe it's making you think you need to push more or pull back a little bit. And we want you to think about, what are you doing to reach these goals, right? What are you doing in class and that sort of thing? And if you aren't doing anything, then what are you about to do to reach these goals? Because you might have set a goal that maybe doesn't come up until the second or third unit, and so maybe that's something you want to start thinking about, right? Okay, any questions? So just take a look at your goals and talk as a team and try to answer these questions. If you need to rework your goals, please do so. Ready? Go. I think I'm doing
Have y'all, so I think that's helpful with kids. I mean, I had tried it by hand and each challenges are waiting. Right, but I was thinking it's so packed. I can't move.
Step on each other. All I know is those.
Anyways, they were like in there. I don't think it's really strong.
I don't know, it was because of,
And I think that's my issue right now.
a bit of a stretch. So I would have liked to see that.
And I was really on the unit.
I'm anxious.
Have the knowledge so I was thinking for white kids that, like, if they were absent, super white kids that still you know, so the kids that need my support all the time, yeah, I feel like I don't agree with them. But I don't know, like for me and my guys, like I think we will. I think we will improve on last year, and I think part of that is just I do also.
Okay, so while you guys are talking about this, it is possible to change and modify those goals. So if you want to change the wording even, or change the goal entirely, go ahead and write that on your blue sheet so we can kind of see how this has morphed, because we will take it back from you and we will revisit it in CTCs and try to encourage you to plan for strategies to help you reach these goals. But if there's anything you need to modify, take that time right now to do that.
do you think this is a worthwhile thing to be like shooting for, or is there a way we can look at it? Well, I don't have the paper for, yeah, Bonnie has it, and I have the paper for myself. Yeah. Right. So like, that's beyond.
You know, this goal resolved this goal 2 weeks from now.
Well, there's a spring season.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's a February or March.
I'll just put
Yeah, so there's a spring CA, you know, and then like a longer term goal I have.
I would also encourage you to make sure it's something that you'll know if you reach that goal. Like, is it measurable? How are you going to know that you actually reached it?
I like to make my kids.
No, it's not really but, okay, so. Sorry. I spent a day with this guy
They're gonna tell me
where he did his like 8th grade science class, which is all through.
Wait till after
Right, so big project, right? So like every 9 weeks is one project, and then that project was also their podcast, right? So they did one on designing a weather, weather probe that would
Okay, so today, as Mr. Riddle mentioned, today is kind of about looking at our kids and looking to see how we're getting our kids through the public school process, right? So today what we're going to kind of look about is we're going to look at this idea of college, career, military readiness, all that good stuff, all right? So you guys set these goals for your kids at the beginning of the year. And at the beginning of the year when you set these goals, we asked you, what do you want your students to be when they leave your classroom? Right? And we had kind of these really great ideas of we want them to be problem solvers and we want them to be critical thinkers, and we were really inspired about what they were going to be and do when they left our classrooms. And I hope some of that's still kind of with you today. So, okay, I get it that all of this testing is overwhelming and all of these different categories that we have to look at. Sometimes it's like, just let me teach kids, right? Okay? But what I want you guys to understand is that what the state has done is the state has said that all of these things, TSI, EOC, CTE certifications, all this kind of SAT, all of it are what the state has said are checks, right? For what our kids need to have in order to be considered college, career, and military ready, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of talk about these different check marks. And how do we, as educators, teach kids and get them to that nitty-gritty stuff that we want them to have that we said at the beginning of the year? And how does that nitty-gritty problem solving and critical thinking and all those things that we want for our kids, how does that tie in to some of these things like TSI and EOC and all that kind of stuff? Okay? All right, so on that note,
We have an activity!
yes, we have a little activity for you guys. So at each table you have an iPad and you have a yellow card. On your yellow card, on the back of it, is a icon, and that is the app you're going to use this morning. So it's either Clips or ChatterPix, okay? And then on the other side of that yellow card are performance descriptors for EOC or SAT, all right? So your job is to use the iPad, open up the app, all right? And then you're going to create a video with your teammates identifying the similarities and differences between the performance descriptors. So kind of discussing what's the similarities and differences between does not meet, approaches, meets, and masters. You with me? Or if you're looking at SAT, PSAT, like what's the difference between the college readiness benchmark and the not college readiness benchmark, okay? Okay, so you've got information about the test. And then you're going to make your little video, okay? It can be super cheesy, all right? Have fun with it. And then you're going to post it to the Padlet. And then
Make sure you save it to the camera roll before you go out of that app, because ChatterPix likes to start over every time you go back to it. So be careful with that.
Okay.
Then the Padlet.
All right, you can get up, you can move around the library, you can, if you go to the Padlet, you can see ours that we made. You can get up, you can walk around, find a
Take a
quiet
picture,
corner.
draw a line for the mouth, and then add some fun stickers. It's a great way for kids to share what they're learning.
And clips is a little different.
You can use clips in the classroom to have your kids talk about what they've just learned.
It's got more fun stuff than that.
Yeah.
Kay was a little tired this morning.
Yeah, it's not, yeah. Sorry, I'm very boring. Okay, find a quiet spot and do your video. Ready, set, go.
Sorry.
We're differentiating
The instruction.
But I'm not gonna go over.
They're looking for the instructions.
I'm getting there, I'm getting back there.
So identify similarities.
That's awesome. Okay.
It's laughable. Alright, similarities. They're all even the math, these are what the hell is this? So we're saying we need to benchmark that means the policy we're ready.
Yeah, so we want everybody to be ready.
We want everything to be done. So then you and then yellow basically means be ready.
Yeah, but they're testing.
Like kind of just the idea.
They should be current. You have them send that to us. Or your team has
I was just looking at her picture.
So similarities. Alright, ready? I'm gonna video you and you're gonna say
What?
So you're just talking about the.
Well, I don't know. Let's see how this thing works.
Are looking at SAT scores? How are you going to know what it means? Describe what it means. Like, what is this? What is, the red mean? If they're in,
So let's take it.
you saw that. You're just no, you're fine. I'm SAT, and this is the
Oh wait, I just overheard some talk. SAT.
Take a picture of anything you want, and you draw a mouth on it. Kind of watch you draw a mouth on it, and then you record what you want to say. So y'all can all have a piece to record or whatever. You can add stickers to make it cute.
Well,
You're just basically
I thought it was going to be comparing
Like if you're looking at the PSAT score and you're doing it for your kids, how are you going to know what it means? Does that make sense?
So basically the PSAT scores. So are we comparing green, yellow, red, or are we comparing SAT with PSAT?
You can, whichever you think would be most beneficial to you. Okay. Or you can just describe it, or whatever you think. What do you think is going to be helpful? Like when you sit down and you start looking at kids' scores, what's going to be helpful for you to remember when you're looking at those kids' scores?
Okay, so PCTs are like 20 different points, like the benchmarks are 20 different points below what the SAT is. So does that mean we can say, okay, if we made a 460 on your PCT, we can guess that that might make a 480 on the SAT?
Yes, yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of variables to that, but yeah. You could say they're on the track to make a 480 or whatever. Yes.
Like,
Yes. You could say they're on track to make that. Yeah.
so do you think that's a better way to like go through this process? I feel like there's more to talk about there. Because our kids are taking TSA, right? And the whole point of the TSA is to look at somewhere. And if we have a kid that's here, we can say,
For students to be college ready, they have to have between a 351 and a 390 on their reading, a 350 and a 390 on their math, and then on the writing, a 340 with an essay. Now, students who are taking dual credit, they go through this process. So some of them have taken pieces of this and they've passed it, and they still need, maybe they're taking dual credit English and they didn't pass the math. And so a lot of students think, well, I've already taken TSI, I'm good to go. But they forget about that math piece. And then when they come in, we pull them in as seniors because they may not be taking a math class their senior year. They don't always do so well on that math. And I think that's what Mr. Whittle's talking about, is just making sure that we support those kids and help them out. If a student comes to you and says, I'm having trouble with this, it's probably because they don't remember it from, their sophomore or junior year. So again, we greatly appreciate you being able to help out those students. Some of the TSI has those 3 tests. What we tell kids too is it's good for 5 years. So maybe you are thinking about going into the military right after you graduate. Plan B now. Something happens, military doesn't work out, you've already taken your TSI, now it's just a matter of maybe having to reapply to a college. The 3 subjects, again, pretty easy. If they score high enough on their SAT scores, or they make high enough on their SAT scores, that can also take the place. However, because students say, I've been admitted to a school, they accept my SAT scores, I'm good to go, why are they asking for my TSI scores? Okay? If they did not meet a 480 on the reading portion of their SAT, or a 530 on the math portion of their SAT, they're not considered college ready. And so that's then where the TSI comes into place, because if they meet that information on the TSI, they're considered college ready, and it washes things out and they're able to move forward with it. But I can tell you that last year I had a lot of students requesting TSI scores, and they didn't realize that, yes, the schools want them, but they didn't kind of understand the issues that if they don't pass them, that they may be in remedial classes, even though we tell them, but they don't always hear that. Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions about TSI, Alamo College Access, or ASVAB testing? It's a lot of information. Yes, ma'am.
All students TSI testing, they're all, at what level do they start TSI testing?
They can start their sophomore year. That's where we start with dual credit. So a lot of, especially our Spanish students going into our language classes, they have the opportunity to TSI test as sophomores. And some as freshmen, I'm sorry.
And if they've had the math, you want me to say that I'll pay for any kid who wants to take it. Because our goal is that they may need several exposures to it, right? And we're really just trying to, what I was trying to do is show you that no matter what you teach, there's a measuring stick, and we're all charged with what? Making sure kids are able to graduate and go do what they want to do. And that's all we're trying to do, is see how we're all connected. TSI is no different than meets or masters on the EOC, because if they're progressing through and learning the way they're supposed to, and coming to school and doing all that, then what's the natural next thing after U.S. history when they're masters, right? The next thing is SAT and TSI, to show that they are on grade level and can operate independently. Because all that's saying is, to us and educators and parents, how much support is that kid going to need moving forward? Okay, so right now, and I know Algebra 2 at the end of the year will TSI test as their final. We've had conversations about that. We've also talked a little bit about English 3 doing the same thing. We would love to see that pushed down. The problem is for kids to take the TSI as a sophomore that have not experienced the math. It's generally not the best thing for them. If they're advanced in math and want to take it and get in dual credit, we want to help them along that route. So anyways, I appreciate you guys hearing us rant about this, but it wasn't until about a year ago I understood the connectedness of all of it together. Like it always seemed like fragmented parts, but I was like, what is all this? Like, what is? And then our team lead meeting, Miss Liz, she asked me, hey, how do I help? How do we help contribute? And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that and just a little bit about strategies and so forth and so on that you can do in your classroom. So thanks for listening to me and go on a crazy rant. But it's really kind of my passion is that we're really all trying to pull together and get these students where they need to be. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Conger. And now...
So before we talk about strategies, we want to go back and revisit the kids. So you have a lot of information. All of you, it was probably the first week of school in our CTCs, we filled out this piece of paper. So depending on the group, it depended on what subject you were as to what data we used to pick these kids, right? Because at that time, we didn't know these kids yet, but we went through, Algebra 1, they looked at 8th grade math scores. Physics looked at SAT and PSAT scores. So you might have looked at last year's CAs, things like that, right? So what we want you to do is to get this list back out and revisit, maybe add some kids to it. You might need to take some kids off. They may have moved or they maybe never showed up to begin with, right? And use what you have in Educoria to guide you and make decisions on who needs to be on this list. So we're going to give you some time to look at that, and then we'll start talking about strategies that we can use with them. Right, Kaye? Did I miss anything?
You want to go to the next slide?
I don't have it.
I got it.
So after you look up the kids, we want you to kind of go through these steps. So we'll let everybody kind of do their own at a time.
Okay, did we talk about these goals still?
There should be extra copies in your folder, right? Yeah? You don't have your own ones?
I do.
So how many?
They're not, I feel like they're not too long. Just probably good. There's another taking a closer look page.
Basically break down into two categories. Don't have the skill.
One thing we talked about.
Anybody need an extra? I did it for the first time.
Somebody brought actually biology. Maybe we can do this course progression a little bit differently so that we make it come into bio, they have what they need, and then I brought up, well, same for physics, There's a way we can practice this. If we have a student who's failed geometry last year,
And then I would just download the app after
right, I didn't mind the same day. That is good sense of conceptual enough. Not do that. I can't teach everybody algebra.
Is there a way in Educoria to
I'm going to say good, 'cause that's the best thing to say. Yeah. It's like a whole bunch of dominoes, and the last one has to fall, but they can't until the first one falls. So we've got
Frustrating.
we're gonna get there or we won't. One or the other.
Can I tell you about my weekend and how it ended? Started by losing my wallet after first week's work at HB on Friday. And then last night about 1 a.m. my son was trying to park there. I knew it was like kind of like that all weekend long.
No.
It is. Click it. You ready for a signal?
Well, at least people can move around. I just know and you guys could reference the green sheet a little bit. Last time we talked about, we've seen some of you use some of the things that we talked about in office. We've seen some of you use some of the results. We want to keep that momentum and maybe inspire some and then we can talk about the green sheet after. There's the sheets for like they're supposed to fill out for their strategy. It was like a pale green color. I think you already put it out. No, they were supposed to look like they were going to take notes. It was a half and half.
Okay, so, all good?
There's one copy that we run to the room.
Am I done? Did you say that?
No. We're about to do strategies specifically to get on. Yeah, they could just do it on the back of it. They already are working on the back of it. I don't think it's hard. I guess we just do it. Just get some
It's nothing gigantical. I'm like always cleansing, like getting really my husband here is that
Alright guys, if you go ahead and start finding it at a stopping point, and if you want to go ahead and log out of Eduphoria and all that good stuff, put your list of monitoring kiddos somewhere safe. So I think for all of us, every time we have these conversations, it always comes down to, yeah, that's great, you guys have made me go through and I've identified these kids and I figured out who's struggling, but like truth is I probably would have figured that out in a couple of weeks, right, by the third day of school or something like that. I know who's the behavior issues, attendance issues, that kind of thing. So what are you doing to help me help, what are you doing to help me help these kids, right? That's always kind of what it comes down to. What am I supposed to do to help them? So we know that everybody in this room is an expert, all right? And so we're gonna ask you guys to kind of brainstorm and think about strategies that you use in your classroom to help these types of students, right? So these are 8 research-proven ways that these types of kids, our SPED kids, our ELL kids, our economically disadvantaged kids, that these types of strategies will help them improve. But the best thing about these 8 ways is that it helps every kid improve. So even the kid who's sitting in pre-AP who needs to be encouraged and pushed a little harder so that they can get like really great, so I just stopped myself from cussing for a second. They can get a really great score on the PSAT and be a National Merit Scholar, right? These things will work for those kids too, all right? So we're just gonna ask that on your white paper, if you would kind of make 8 categories, right? Because here in a second,
fold it down the middle, hot dog.
Oh, okay.
And we're
You
gonna use
wanna-
front and back. There's a white piece of paper, so hot dog like this. Hot dog is the skinny way. And you're gonna write these 8 things using the front and the back. So write, compare and contrast, leave a little space. Write cooperative learning, leave a little space. Write, summarize, note taking, leave a little space. Do you know what I'm saying?
So we're using both sides for
Both
the same
sides,
activity?
yeah. On one side is what you're adding to it. Remember give and get last time? So kind of like that. So on the left side, you'll add your stuff, and on the right side, we'll get from our partners. But put the titles up there so that we're making sure we're looking at each one. You can use the back. You can do 4 on the front and 4 on the back.
Look at you making an even space.
Is she folding it because that's what I'm doing?
She's folding it again so that it'll all be even boxes.
Hello? Well, I mean, how else would you do that?
Hey, there's English teachers over there. Good. Wow.
You can use the back as well.
That does not bother us.
Yeah, so just title each little box or category. You've got a compare and contrast box, a cooperative learning box, summarize and note taking, recognize and reinforce, movement, setting objectives, formative assessments, and concepts.
Oh, Bonnie, can we have that paper?
Yep, sorry. I took it. I'm sorry, George.
8 ways.
Do you want to give instructions? I can go let them write. Yeah, just do that.
They want these letters, like, does it matter?
Talking about that projectile thing?
No, this is.
Okay, so here in just a second, we're going to stand up and we're going to give and we're going to get. But before we do that, what we want you to do is talk to the people in your team, and we want you guys to brainstorm how you do some of these things already. Right? So for example, I already know that everybody in this room can write down I will, we will for setting objectives. Right? Because you set that objective for your kids. You tell your kids, this is what we're going to learn today. This is how I'll know that you've learned it. That's your I will. Right? So you've already set objectives. So for your special ed kids or your ELLs, it tells them, oh, I got to focus on this part. Right? And they can tune in to that one particular part. So if they don't get the rest of it, they can at least tune into that part. Right? If they don't understand what you're saying. Cooperative learning. So this would be some of the things that you do when you have them turn and talk, right? But we want you to try to be more specific than that. Because I don't know about y'all, but like I could easily walk up to Taylor and be like, yeah, in my class I would have him turn and talk about this question. And Taylor's going to go, okay, that's great, thanks. You know, and find somebody else to talk to. What we hope you'll do is go up and be like, so one day I had really great success. I had my kids pair up based on like who got up the earliest that morning. And they got up and they moved and they met up and they talked about the question of which character is most like you. And they had these really great engaging conversations. Like be a little bit of specific, because then if I'm teaching history, that might make me go, oh, you know, I could have my kids get up and talk about like these 2 different historical figures and how they're alike or how, you know, that sort of thing, all right? So you're just gonna, so first things first, you're gonna talk to your team about how do you already do these things, because we know you're already doing these things. And then here in just a minute, we're gonna have you guys get up and walk around and get some ideas from other experts in the room. Okay, any questions?
That's why I'm not walking around.
So talk about how you do these things, jot some ideas down, and then we'll move in just a minute. Okay, go.
Pretty good.
Okay, what did I not put?
So, no, what I don't.
Can I tell you something? My classes are like really I can't remember what the exact question was, but I had a job position and answer this question, and it was like something like graphing motion is like telling a house to touch, like that crazy thing that they taught us about how to do that. Then they did second football fighting, right? And then they teach them like write it out. I honestly was just trying to get them to do that. Like that's all I read about it. I was doing it so awesome. But it turned into like
action in the middle, and then they start like, okay, we'll talk about there's some sales game.
so there's strategy there, but
And like give them some silent time to like just do it, and then they share, and then like my partner has something to do so that yeah, that's right. This is a like a graphic we're gonna so like a really